Yes, okay, so I want to make sure I get this. And before I run and get coffee, it occurs to me that a box of Joe may not be the best way to go since there are so few of us, and I can just take coffee orders. How do you like black? Black. Medium, small?
Medium.
Medium? Anybody else with coffee?
Black and real. None of this ersatz stuff that my wife drinks.
I'm going to Dunkin', so it'll be easy to do that. Is that real enough?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I'll take a black medium, please.
Well, it's making the season, so.
I'll take a small with cream and sugar, please.
Sure.
How about the black medium with sugar?
Thank you.
The small with cream and sugar in some parts of the country would be the regular.
Yeah.
You say regular coffee and you're in trouble in the
Yeah.
South.
So I got a medium black, medium black with sugar, and small cream sugar. What
Can I get a medium decaf with milk, please? I dropped caffeine recently. It's great. It's a great decision. I still love coffee. But,
I'm going to ask, since unfortunately it's an intimate group here, a small setting, if you could indulge me while I make sure we get the
you want me to
picture
stand, like, over
correct. Is that okay with you? If you'd rather
here?
be over here, I
it's not
can
in the
switch
light.
it
That's
around.
fine.
And
I don't know if I
it
can
may
just
not
stand
matter
with just
because
like 6 of us. Huh?
it may not matter because I may not be able to get the slides.
I'm recording the slides themselves.
I'm not going to worry about the video.
Yeah.
Somehow the words are being inverted. I have a mirror image of the words on my screen. But we'll have you.
Flip it around.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not going to worry about that. Is that easy to do?
Depends on what you're using to record.
Illuminate. I've never had that happen.
It's usually in the
before.
webcam. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I'm actually. I can give you the slides.
okay, that would work too. I'm going to go to record. Again, apologize for recorder. And if you wouldn't mind, and if you could all further indulge, okay. Just a brief who you are, your school.
Sure.
And I know we went through it, but
Yeah.
good to people viewing this. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, once again, my name is Mike Hayden. I'm the Technology Integration Specialist. I think I'm the only person in the world that has that. I don't know, is that title around? I've never heard it before. And I work at Prospect Hill Academy Charter School, which is in Somerville and Cambridge. But I specifically work at the Upper School campus, which is in Central Square in Cambridge. And I want to talk briefly about cell phones in schools. And I want to talk about cell phones and not necessarily smartphones today. So sorry if that's disappointing. But we can talk more about smartphones at the end. I did put one little mention about it. And the reason why I want to talk about cell phones instead of smartphones is in my school, there are 3 kids that don't have a cell phone out of 500. And everybody else has one. And smartphones still have quite a bit of coverage, especially with some of the cheaper, Android phones that you can get. But it's not everybody has it. Like almost everybody has a cell phone now. So I'm a teacher, so I like to start with objectives. I just want to sort of take a look at the policies that schools have with cell phones these days, so that we can talk about whether that's happening or not. I'm going to sort of try to make the case that if we just sort of ignore cell phones and pretend that they don't exist, then we're actually causing more of the problem than solving it, and we end up with these $68,000 texting bills because the kids don't understand how cell phones work. And just to share some of the things that I did when I was in the classroom as a regular teacher with cell phones that I thought were really successful. And stop me at any time. I'm a teacher, so like if people aren't talking, that means they aren't getting it, in my view. So just docket. I always use the word docket instead of agenda because docket's always on the SATs. What's my policy? So I want to actually hear from you guys about what your policies are at the schools, whether if you work at a school, what the policy is with cell phones, or if you've just been to a lot of schools, sort of what you think the most common one is. And we'll talk about like what the legitimate fears are about having cell phones out in the classroom, right? That there are legitimate fears, and talk about what those are, and sort of name them, and then talk about, okay, well, what on the other hand, what can they do for us what real tools and strategies can we use, and then see if we can't figure out some better idea for a policy for what we should be doing. So we'll start with you guys. The way we're going to do this actually is to demonstrate one of the actual uses for the phones. Have you guys ever used Pull Anywhere or a cell phone pulling service? So if you guys take your phones out, if you have them, and if you don't mind sending a text message, I just want to demo this software. I don't know if any of you guys were at MassQ this year, but the keynote speaker actually used it. I don't know how I felt about the actual presentation, but he did use this. So the way it works is, and if you have a smartphone, you don't have to waste a text message. That's on the next slide. But you're going to text to the number 22333. That's like the number that you're sending it to. And then not this slide, but on the next one, there'll be some numbers that you can answer the polling question with. Okay, so if you have a smartphone, you can just go to pull4.com. Now we don't have to waste a text message. That's easier. Okay, so here's the first question. As soon as it decides it wants to go. So the question is, what is your school's policy around cell phones? Choose the option below. I don't know if you can read this, so I'll just sort of read it out. The top one says, no cell phones in school at all. If they are visible, the student gets in trouble. So if you thought that was the answer, you'd put 2233 as the number you're dialing, that this is the text message that you'd send, just this number as code. So the top one says, no cell phones in school at all, or they get in trouble. This one says that cell phones could be there, but they can't make any noise, they have to be off, they have to be away, okay, but they're still allowed to be in the building. The third one says students can use cell phones in the hallway, but just not in class. This one says teachers are in control of the cell phone rules in their own classroom, so there aren't in your classroom the teacher's the one in charge. And down here it says there are rules in place, but none of them are followed, and the kids just sort of do whatever they want, which is often the case in a lot of other schools. And this one says there's no rules, or whatever people want. So you can see actually it's populating as you guys send it in.
So the text message, I think we ever sent a text.
Yeah, the pull4 one is actually a little bit easier. So yeah, I figure that this is the case in most schools, right? That the majority of schools, either it's no cell phones at all, or it's the cell phones can be there, right? The kids need them for emergencies and things like that, but they can't actually use them at all in the school. That's the way it works for the most part. And then yeah, some schools have this. This is the de facto rule in our school, right? Kids can't use them in the hallways, and they can't use them in class, but they can use them before and after school. And so kids have them before and after school, in class. Yeah, so maybe that's one of these. I don't know. It differs by school. And so, but my point is, I think originally is that really cell phones aren't getting a lot of use in school. And let's sort of see why that's the case. So here's the next one. This one is asking about you personally. I've raised it up so you can't even read the question. So the question is, what do you think about cell phones? Do you think that they have a role in school? Do you think that they could be a powerful device in school? Do you think yes, definitely, yes, but maybe not, or I have some reservations, or no, except for maybe one little place where they might be useful, or yeah, no cell phones in school whatsoever. It seems like a terrible idea. Yeah. So we'll see again. The results come in, immediately, which I think is pretty awesome. And this is also integrated within PowerPoint, right? It's not like some separate website that I have to go into if I'm giving my presentation for class. It's right here, not off in some far off land. So cool. Yeah, we have some really interesting. Some people think yes, definitely. Some people sort of yeah, but I don't know. And some people saying oh, I think it's a bad idea. And so let's sort of analyze that. I have my opinions on it. You guys can have yours, and we'll see, what we think is the right idea in the end. So this is the last one, and this one is more. You can actually have a discussion, or you can put text into it as well. And so this one says, so okay, you have some reservations, perhaps. Can you text those in? I won't have your number or anything like that. I won't call you at 6 a.m. to on Saturday or anything. And so you just say, you text to 22333, then you put this code in 527272, and then the next is a little message that you have to write. What is a reservation that you might have?
So you put the numerical code in before.
Yeah, right. So here's an example right here. You say the message goes to this number. You write this, and then you just start typing up a sentence or whatever. You have to be a full sentence. Feel free to use, text language or just shorten it up. Okay. data analysis when used for pulling. Yeah, that's a good one. So smartphones in class can be a huge distraction, right? That's really important. This one's mine. I'm worried that like if we do allow them and we have very specific rules about when they're here and the teachers like don't have the emotional energy to enforce that, then everything will just run amok and be crazy. I missed the first one. What did it say?
Distraction.
Yeah, distraction. That's a key one. And you know, we experience that ourselves in meetings, right? Like when actually it just happened to me a second ago. When Ryan was handing out these cards, I missed the instructions about what we were supposed to be doing with it originally because the teacher had sent me an email that was very confusing. It said, "I fixed my computer. Thanks for your help." And I had spoken to that teacher today.
So you just take that one and run with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, students should check with the teacher and use for schoolwork. Yeah.
That's sort of my default policy to any technology, whether it's school or student-owned in buildings. You check in with the teacher that you're using it, and you use it for what you need to for class.
Right, and not for texting the girl downstairs about meeting up later in the bathroom. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how many other people might be in this situation, but we already have a source of distraction in the classroom. Every student has a laptop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the teachers already have the issue of managing a very attractive technology, which can be used for communication and Facebooking and
Right.
God knows what else.
Right.
So they've already addressed that issue.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't allow the students to take the laptops out.
Mhm.
So you can imagine there might be a way of managing the cell phones also
Right.
in a similar way.
Yeah.
So the issue is there. Note passing is a distraction.
Right,
You
right.
know, that technology will.
Yeah, and that's
if you
why-
if you don't squash that one, it's
Yeah.
going to be just as bad.
Right. And that was like, originally, you know, when like pencils and paper became common. I think that was like actually the situation in schools where they said, no, we're not going to have that, and the kids could write something down, and we couldn't erase it with a slate like we had. Just quickly about the website, it's pulleverywhere.com. It's free for the basic features and integrates right into PowerPoint, like I showed you. You can pay $50 a year if you want to get what somebody had said might be a reservation for this polling thing. You can, you know, if you put the students' numbers in with this $50 a year model, you can moderate the content. You can make sure that the kids can't just put any old thing up on the board. You can see where it's coming from, and you can track students over time what their answers were. I, as a big initiative, bought with school money a set of Turning Point clickers in my classroom 2 years ago, and had a lot of success with it. Kids loved it, and I got some really, really awesome data and tracked it longitudinally to see what skills the kids were great at, what skills they stunk at, so I could reteach what they need, or you know, go back in later lessons and re-accent those points. One set of those for the class is like $1,000 though, right? And every kid comes to school, almost every kid, with a cell phone in their hand already. And so I think that there's a lot of stuff that the clickers can do that that Pull Everywhere that we just saw cannot. But the price difference is spectacular, from free to $1,000, or $50 a year to $1,000 for one class. Anyway, you can draw your own conclusions from there. Okay, so that's just hearing from you guys. I'm glad that I got a chance to do that. And now I'll talk about, so what are we afraid of? And it's going to echo some of the things that you guys brought up in the text a second ago. Distraction. This one is like really a huge deal. I went to a talk at the IBM Center for Social Software. It's in Cambridge over in Kendall. And there was a guy there, his name was Craig Watkins, and he wrote this book called The Young and the Digital. And a couple of things that I thought were really interesting that he said were students spend more than 10 hours a day, today's kids, consuming from some kind of screen, which is a huge number. I mean, I think it's similar for most of us, or you know, whether it's the PowerPoint screen in class or the text that they send literally all night sometimes, the television, Facebook, and so on. It's more than 10 hours a day. And what's also interesting is that for low-income and minority subgroups, the number is even higher. And I was actually, remember you guys at this Meta talk the other day at Google headquarters? It was you were at that one? Yeah, it's a really interesting experience. Just go check out Google headquarters, there's not their headquarters, but the Google office in Kendall. And there was a guy there from Google who was talking about how he also sees in the data that not only are minority and lower income subgroups spending, you know, like this has more time in front of the screen, but that's also the way that they're using the technologies is more as a consumer and less as a producer. And they see the web more as a place to take information rather than give out and share. And it's sort of like what he said is very similar to what cable did, which is that like, okay, here's the dominant culture on TV, take that in, as opposed to like generate your own content. I thought it was a really interesting comment. And I hadn't seen that data, but he claims to exist. There was this big New York Times article that came out that said, it was called Growing Up Digital, Wired for Distraction. You guys all read that? Everybody was passing that around, all the teachers. I got like 10 of those, like, you work in technology, you're destroying our kids' brains. I think it's really important to note separately that technology is not deterministic. It doesn't control our lives. We control it. We decide whether I pick up the cell phone or not. The cell phone doesn't decide for me until Watson becomes smart enough to run the world and blow us all up or whatever. We're still in control. But either way, this constant multitasking that we're engaging in, and more importantly that our kids are engaging in, it's actually having real effects on the way we think and the way our brains are developing, and it's not a good thing. And people, particularly neuroscientists, are very, very worried about it, and they should be. And this is really interesting from one of my students, because I was asking them, she looked really tired, and I asked her, why are you so tired? She said, oh, I was up till like 3:30 texting last night. I said, why? And she said, well, I was trying to do my work, but I was getting all these texts from a friend of mine. And I said, well, if you have to do your work and you have to go to bed, just turn your phone off or like say, hey, I got to go. And she said, I did say I have to go, but the kid was like really texting over and over again. And I said, well, at one point you just have to turn it off. And she said, if I turn my cell phone off while I'm working, my friends are going to get mad at me. Okay. Or another student says like they have this strong feeling. This talk from Mr. Watkins. That kids often say, if I turn the cell phone off, I'm going to miss something, and they feel like all the time everything is this information flow is constant, and they always want to be a part of it. And if they can't, if we're not training them, I'm not going to go so far. But these are the things that we're worried about. Yeah, sure.
Apropos the first item, there's something else that I've thought about, and that is we have had a long time. A concern about the difference, of course, in what the technology support is like in the school versus at home. Mm-hmm. For many years, we did not allow students to take their laptops home because in a place like Codman Square in Dorchester, carrying an expensive laptop is an invitation.
That's serious, yeah.
To disaster. However, they've begun doing it, but in any case. The cell phone situation is reversed. The chances are every phone, even if the student doesn't have a phone, there is a phone at home. So you've got, you've taken the technology and reversed it.
Yeah.
So how can we use that, considering that it's important to integrate parents into the whole system? How can we use that to make it work?
That's a great point. And also another thing that's similar is not only our low-income and minority students, they also have it's more likely they're going to have a phone at home than a computer for sure. And they also use certain technologies proportionally more. For example, Twitter, for low-income and minority groups, is used not more than regular old white people, but more proportionally. So you don't find more low-income people on Twitter, but there are more, what I'm saying, there's a higher proportion of people on Twitter using it than there are just in general. So yeah, it's really interesting what is available and what's different with cell phones. So this is similar, right? The first one was multitasking and like what it's actually doing to our brains, but let's talk about the actual classroom environment too. These are things we're worried about. Students will be tempted, right? And they're going to text under the desk. I am by far the best in school at detecting this, and I have like many false positives because I'm vigilant. The kids are like checking their nails or something, but they look like they're looking down and going like this, and so I assume they're texting, and the kids they think it's funny. And I'll be walking down the hall, and there's a glass door to the classroom, and they'll see me going like this to try and look under the desk. This is happening, This is happening. There's no question about it. Every teacher in the school knows this is happening, and it's happening all the time. Or the students do it in their bag when they look like they're getting a paper out. But the worry is that if we have the cell phones out all the time, it's going to get worse. And that we're going to have vibration, we're going to have sounds, beeping, and it's a known fact that it's a well-studied thing that distractions in the classroom or interruptions in the classroom, like the loudspeaker or anything else, hurt. And we know that. And the other thing that I think a lot of teachers get worried about is like, oh, if they can just have their cell phones out in class, then they're not learning what it's like to be a good citizen or a good professional. They're going to think that it's okay to text throughout a meeting when they get out and they go to visit, or text in class during an open discussion in college when they get there. And so this is they're worried about this. We're not teaching them the right thing if we're saying they can have their cell phones out in class. So those are two things. And the last one is about control. I'm absolutely the highest. I need control in my classroom. I don't even let kids in my class write their examples on the board because I don't want the other kids to see a bad answer. I only want them to see a bad answer if I've controlled all the variables so that I can set it up to make the mistake that they most commonly make and have them identify it. Anyway, that's just me. I'm kind of controlled out like that. It freaks teachers out to think that kids might be sexting. I don't know how you sext from class, but maybe the picture's been taken in advance, or sending a Facebook message, or like I said before, texting your boyfriend to meet me in the bathroom later, or something like that. And that's a real worry about this control. I know IT people don't like the idea of having to support 60, 70, 100 different models of phones, Android 1.6 to Honeycomb, and then iPhones and regular stick phones, and there's so many different types of phones.
Try being a developer.
Yeah, I believe it. And then the question, again, that we said before is what equity issues arise out of this? What about the kids that don't have a cell phone? What about the kids that have a cell phone but they don't have unlimited text messaging? Or they have a cell phone and it doesn't have a camera on it? So there are some issues around that we really have to think about how we design a lesson so that we can deal with that. So my argument now is that, first of all, every single one of the things that I just said really bashed on cell phones, right? It sounds like a terrible idea. And I think all these concerns are absolutely real and things that we should be super, super worried about. But in my view, actually, let me just review them. So first of all, it's screwing up our brains to be multitasking all the time, right? The kids are actually, losing their ability to focus and give attention to something for a long time by constantly being distracted. They're unable to resist the temptation. They can't turn the phone off. Their friends are not letting them turn the phone off. And we're worried about the different types of cell phones. All of these things are super real as concerns. Okay, but let's focus on the first two for a second. In my view, that if we avoid cell phones in school and we make the kids turn them off and put them away, it's the same thing as abstinence education or DARE or something like that. By saying to the kids, no cell phones. Okay, kids by nature are oppositional, right? Or especially adolescents, right? They're going to turn that around and say, oh, okay, let me try my best to text without the teacher seeing. And more importantly, if we want to help the kids to deal with the issues of, to use their phone responsibly, not sext or anything else that's illegal, or run up a bill that's $68,000 like you saw, or if we want the kids to avoid the distraction and learn how to deal with the distraction of the cell phone, okay, and how to focus on one thing at a time, then we need to take the phone out from under the desk and put it on top and make the kids focus on one thing at a time. And when the phone is right there, force them to not be distracted by it. Just like you guys all have your phones out right now but are not checking it, right? That's something we need to teach. And my argument is that...
I've got two phones and I'm texting on
Yeah. My father carries two phones. I don't understand what he's doing. He has a work phone and a business phone, but they're both smartphones. Or a home phone. Anyway. So yeah, my argument is very similar to abstinence, right? We can tell the kids, don't do it. Don't use your cell phone. And then they're going to go around and do things, cyberbullying, sexting, texting all night instead of doing their homework. Or we can actually teach them how to use them correctly. And so I think they need to come out from under the desk, because that's where they are. They're out. They're just under the desk. And they need to come out. So the reason why I think they should do that is not because all of that stuff with digital citizenry that I said a second ago, but also it can be a really powerful teaching tool. And I'm talking about cell phones, like I said before, and not smartphones. So I'm not talking about super awesome smartphones, just your regular stick phone with a screen and a microphone and a speaker and a camera, and that's it. And what can this do? Quite a bit, actually. Smartphones can do a lot more, but like I said, they're not ubiquitous enough, in my view, to be everywhere. But they can make calls, they can send text messages, and if they have the camera, they can do video or photo, which could be really powerful as well. So what can we do with it? First of all, you saw that audience response stuff I did in the beginning. That's great for teachers who've never used a clicker before. This formative assessment is instantaneous. You can get data at the point of instruction. So you teach something and immediately afterwards check. You don't have to give them homework and check the next day and say, oh, they didn't get, immediately you have the data you need to say, oh, this kid knows that or doesn't know that. It's right there. And it's for everyone to see. And it can also, with those, with the texting conversations that you had, I've done that in my class before. The kids will, instead of like having an open discussion about something, I'll put the thing up there and we'll sit in silence and the kids will literally chat about it all at once on the board collectively.
How does that work? I don't understand.
So the one where we texted in like sentences before,
Yes.
yeah, so I can put a prompt up here and all the kids take out their cell phones from their seats and then they can exchange and talk to each other all around the room.
I see.
You can have them also orally discuss the data that comes up. So when I was a student teacher, my cooperating teacher used to always do this, and he would have the kids. He would get a piece of chart paper and write a question on the top, and give the kids all a Post-it, and there would be 4 or 5 across the room. He called it a consensogram, and they would walk around and put the Post-it on each and make a sort of bar graph like that, right? And that's just not something we have to do anymore. We can immediately move towards putting it up in the front of the room, have it be quicker, right? We don't have to take 20 minutes of chaos as the kids circulate the room. Instead, take your cell phones out. Trust me, the kids are faster at texting than you could possibly believe. The rate at which they click is astounding. And so we can get the data quickly, and we can have the kids talk about something. So in physics, this is perfect, right? I used to teach physics. You would ask them some question that gets at a misconception that they always have, like, something about, do heavier things fall faster or something, right? And have the kids text in, yeah, everybody thinks that heavier things fall faster, right? Like a bowling ball must fall faster than a crumpled up piece of paper, which is not the case. But getting that graph up there in the beginning, the teacher gets to access those misconceptions before they begin the lesson, and the kids get to argue about it and get passionate about it before you even start. So this is a super powerful tool, and that's why there are so many groups getting into these response systems in class. But you can save a lot of money and get not so much the data-driven thing that we talked about in the beginning, unless you want to spend some money, but you can get this this discussion generating, this class-wide data immediately at the point of instruction.
We use at the beginning of every class there is what's called a do now.
A do now, yeah.
Which this would be very good for.
That's exactly what I use it for.
If you pose a good question and have them use their cell phones, then they can put them away if you weren't ready to do any more.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be one way of using it. That's very interesting.
Absolutely.
So this, the display, it requires a PowerPoint connection, or
no? So you can do it on the web. This particular slide is from the Turning Point, the real clickers that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that we did before, you can do that just on their website, or you can embed it into PowerPoint. It's a Flash object, so you can put it like anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So this is another way that I used cell phones outside of my classroom, actually connected to something. You can actually, kids are using these cell phones all the time outside of school. They're far more likely to be checking their cell phone for text messages than they are to be checking email. And that's just the nature of kids today. And some kids, again, don't have internet or computers at home, but are far more likely to have a cell phone. And so I used to send out my homework every night, 6 o'clock, 6:30, whenever I got a chance to do it. Physics A, hey, you guys have assignment 12, questions 4 through 6. And it wasn't a reminder, right? But it's the same as having, your homework posted online, right? It's the same as the course syllabus for a college class. Without spending $10,000 for Blackboard or something that some of the kids can't access at home if they don't have an internet connection, every night, this is your homework, okay? And like I said, it's more universal, and the kids are more likely to check it. It's a substitute for that. And so this is the way that works. You can actually, many people don't know this, every phone number, all of yours, has an email address that you can send an email to, and it gets transferred to a text. So, for example, if you're on AT&T, it's my number at txt.att.net. If you send an email to that, it comes as a text message to you. And if you're on T-Mobile, it's this. So I asked all the kids, do you want these text messages? Have your parents sign off if that's okay, because I don't want to run you up a bill for extra money and have them freak out. And what's nice about this is I sent those text messages as an email, right? And so my personal cell phone number is never revealed, which could be dangerous, right? And some teachers feel more or less comfortable with that. I do. This maintains that insulation that a lot of teachers want. And since I set up these mailing lists in advance, literally 6:30 comes around at my house. I'm sitting down, just finished dinner, and I type. I go to Gmail, hit physics A in the toolbox, tab, homework, control enter. I'm done. It's a 3-second thing. Very, very quick. So here's some examples of the kids then facilitating communication with me, and I've blocked the names of the kids. Hi, Mr. Caden, it's blank from your physics class. I was absent today, so can I give you my project tomorrow? Okay, so that's crazy, right? Like the kid is absent. What reason did I've never had a kid come up to me, and say this out loud, right? They just give me the project. They don't have to tell me I'm going to be there tomorrow to give them the project. Yeah, they were absent. I don't know why this kid said that. No problem. Here I am constructing algebra advice. I found A first. I'm going to translate. I found A first, then T with VF equals VI plus AT, which is a physics equation, and got negative 0.57. And she's upset because she's looking for T and she got a negative number, so she knows it's wrong. And because time's not going to be negative. And then I explained, the value that you got is incorrect, but the way you went about it was right. Check your algebra on the calculation for A, because that must have been the problem. And then, this is just a list from a couple of days worth. I did just a search, so only the ones came up that were from phone numbers of just what the kids were saying, little help with this, left my notebook, is that okay? Really confused, what about the 20x on the top, and so on. These, some teachers might be around and willing to communicate with their kids from home at 8 o'clock. Some teachers maybe not. But if they are, this is an incredibly powerful resource for accessing your kids. And if they want to get better at their homework, if they want to get this problem right, I'm going to answer these questions. That's just me.
What does your inbox look like on a daily basis?
Oh no, not so bad. This is not one day or whatever. This is just I did a search for everything that began with 617 or 857 or something.
What kind of texting limit do you have?
Yeah. Oh well, I don't send any text message. Right. This is all in the email from me. So when they respond, it comes back to my email. For them, that's their issue. But trust me, they have lots of stuff. This is the front end of the behavior management system that I was talking about that I constructed this year. And the system is designed to send the kids text messages at 3:45 as they leave the building. Hey, you have detention today. Don't skip detention. And so it's ready to do that. It hasn't been done yet because we have to give out a mass permission slip for that. For the same reason I said before, we don't want to run up their bills. So anyway, really accessing kids at the place where they're at. And if we need to get in touch with them, then we do it the way we can get in touch with them. And the other thing is that, I'm sure you've seen this before, whenever kids are in class and they get a new piece of technology in their hand, their engagement is instant. As soon as they have the cell phone in their hand, like those discussions I was just talking about before, the kids are rapidly texting as fast as they can to argue with each other about, maybe it's in a history class about some issue. This is just a picture from my class last year of the kids. I did the same experiment 2 years in a row, where they're graphing themselves running. It was a graphing distance, velocity, time, things like that. And the first year they ran, and we stood there with stopwatches and constructed a graph by tabulating the data and so on. And then the second year I whipped out the expensive physics materials and we used these motion sensors and did it. Not only were they overwhelmingly engaged at a much higher level, but they were also they learned the material exponentially better because they were engaged. I don't think that's a good reason altogether to use technology in the class. I think it's nice to engage the kids, and then you have to do your teaching. Right? I don't think cell phones are going to replace the teacher or anything like that. And it makes the classroom feel responsive to the kids. This is a survey that I did about these text messages as I was pioneering them last year. Some of the kids just got it as an email if that's what they preferred. These are the number of kids in my class I had 80 kids last year in physics. 62% of them were getting the text message, 63% were getting the email, and there's overlap. Some kids were getting both. Did they find them helpful? On a scale from 1 to 4, the average was 3.5. And asking them if they thought other teachers, if it would be useful, they said 92%. And then another piece of data, which is actually not on here, I looked at their homework completion percentages from before I started doing the texts to after, and compared the kids who were getting the text to the kids who weren't. And the kids who were getting them, it was a significant increase. It was 9 or 10%. Not significant, all homework completed or anything like that. I don't think there's any technology to solve that problem, but certainly statistically significant.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It would be hard to argue that it's that that it's not causative, because the correlation would suggest that the kids, who don't take the text messages would be the less engaged folks, right? I'm trying to understand whether there's a complete
Oh, you would say like
hypothesis.
what I should have done was compare it to their grades before and after as well, or something. Like
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean it was just for my own personal thing. I didn't conduct any high level statistical analysis, but
No.
I don't even know if I would know how to do that. But
Educational research is impossible.
yeah, yeah. I think in my view, I think it helped, and I think the kids who were getting it were saying that it was helping. Which has meaning for itself, even if it wasn't helping. Right? If the kids think it's helping, then they're more engaged in my physics class.
If you talk about this kind of thing with the teachers in your school, 50 teachers, do you get what kind of reaction do you get?
It's interesting. A lot of these slides that I'm showing you now, I gave at a big talk at the school last year. They have this thing called the Collaborative Inquiry Showcase. A lot of the teachers were really interested in the idea, and as it is the case with most technology things, when you first demonstrate it to them, they're amazed, right? And then when you ask them to implement it, they need support. And it's not that they don't want to do it, it's just that they need support. And so actually, in a setting where there's 50 teachers or more, this setting was like 120, I was like all the teachers in the school, that's not a great situation for trying to get them to actually implement this. There are some other teachers that use it in the school now, though, and that are not the most tech-savvy ones amongst us. And here's the last one, I think. This is a picture from my physics class last year. And this is actually something that I do this year, whether it's the Pull Anywhere thing that we saw before where you can text in sentences or phrases, or using Twitter or some other tool. I don't think it's right when you're giving a lecture, as you see pictured there, that the kids should be texting a back-channel discussion. I don't think that's right. I think that goes against what I was saying before, against multitasking and really focusing on one thing at a time. However, this is what I do in my computer science class now, except they do it on a computer without a cell phone, is that when the kids are working on independent work or in small groups, there's only one Mr. Caden, right? And so I'm running around the room from this kid, right, says, Mr. Caden, can I get some water? And it's so difficult as a teacher to manage who's getting your attention in those situations, right? And what I've decided this year to do is to have the kids actually post on a place in the front their question and what assignment they're working on or whatever section of the project or the thing they're working on. And that way, if the question can't be answered, in comes the next text message with the answer. So this is something that happened in my class recently. This is actually from physics last year. How do you calculate the second car's time? You don't know, it's the unknown, and then it's like, oh, okay, I forgot that's the thing I'm supposed to be looking for. This guy's asking about the second car's initial velocity. This is the CSI project that I did last year for car graph. The kids can do that, and then it also shows that some of the kids can get their questions answered, even though there's one Mr. Caden that's walking around. And also, I can see if 7, 8 kids have the same question. All right, everybody, stop what you're doing. Let's pause and go over this one thing, so that you don't have to waste time sitting there waiting for help. So a lot of power on these cell phone things. Last one. This one's really interesting. I think I said last one like 3 times in a row. There's just so many things you can do with them. Multimedia in the classroom, right? With the microphone on the phone and the camera on the phone, we can show them what the web can do, and we can create multimedia products as a class. So a quick example. I'll just do this real quick. I'll take a picture of this slide, and there it goes. And you can do this with a regular camera phone, right? So with Picasa or Flickr or a lot of these different websites, you can MMS, which is just the media text message, the photos or whatever, right to Picasa. So I'm going to do that now. And that way, you can have every kid in the class take a picture of their problem number 4 and send it in an MMS to this thing. And then up on the board, out comes all of their responses. And so, you can get a $2,000 Elmo at the front and have the kids walk up and put their thing in a document camera so it can get projected. Or we can just teach teachers how to use this properly. Let's see if I can. Michael, Caden, and so this is nice too. The physics box for this is just my name at physics or .physics at Picasa.com, PicasaWeb.com. And so you can send an MMS to an email address, and that's the same price and everything. And so here, I'll send it, and we'll come check it in a second because it'll take 30 seconds to populate. But the kids can take number B from their, or letter B from their assignment, and everybody texts it to the front, and the teacher can flip through it and look, you know, who got it right, who got it wrong. Let's see what this person did, and actually discuss that in the front of the class. You know, that's one example. Think about all the different things that you can take pictures of with your kids. It could be a homework assignment. Go take a picture of a piece of architecture, or go take a picture of a sign on the street, and we'll translate them tomorrow in Spanish. Anything.
Or take a picture to be part of your lab, lab
Yeah,
report.
exactly.
Here's the. You don't have to make a sketch of something.
Right,
You
yeah.
can just show it.
Throw it right in there. A picture of or a video even of the solution turning green as you put the 5th drop in, you know, or whatever. This is another one. This one is spectacular, and I'm about to start using this with the Spanish department in my school. Anybody have Google Voice? Yeah. So if you buy into the Google Kool-Aid, which I do, this is a solution for recording audio without digital recorders, without headsets in a media lab. Okay, the kids can call this number, leave a voicemail, and you can download it as an MP3, and you can play it in front of everybody in the class. And one thing that's great, my Google Voice number is 20956-CADEN, which is my name. And so the kids can remember the number. It's not a complicated thing. Just like my website is mrcaden.com. And, you know, it used to be like phaphysics.wordpress.com or something. But they can't handle it. I needed to give them something they could remember. And this is the best part. I'm going to show you this. You can put a button on your blog, your website, something like that, where you press the button and it connects your phone to my Google Voice without revealing my number. So I have a separate Google Voice number that I do give to kids, but if there's some reason you don't want to do that, I can press this button, okay, and then I'll put in, can I put in my number? Yeah, I can put in my number. It is here. Say it's Mr. Caden, and here's my number. Whoops. Now you guys can all call me at night. And here, it's gonna connect me to me, but to this voicemail box, and so here comes the call, I'm sure. This is where you go and you work. Here it comes. Okay, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to say press 1, I think. Okay. This is my test voice message. I'm leaving this message as en español for my Spanish class. And okay, goodbye. And then you hang up. And then this one will also take a second. So I'll go back to the Picasso one, so you can look at a picture that I took of the board before. Right. So the kids can all text these multimedia things in at once. Here's my picture from the board. Right. And you can actually publish this as an RSS feed too. So if you want to just like put it right to a blog, that can happen really easily. That's the picture I took before. Yeah, and then the voicemail that I just left will be on Google Voice. It's on my other account. There's Mr. Caden PHA, and then there's my real one. This is my test voice message. I'm leaving this message as en español for my Spanish class. It didn't do great translation, but that's not really the point for what we're doing right here. And what's great, again, like I said, is you can just hit download here, and boom, I get an MP3 of it that gets downloaded immediately. And I can save all those ones for kids for later work or anything like that.
What is the application for that? No, I mean technological. How do you use that? How would that be relevant in classroom?
So the way I'm using it with the Spanish department this year is they're trying to do a benchmark oral assessment. So like once a quarter, the kids do the same assessment, and they want to keep track of it over time. And so the kids can, instead of taking them to a complicated media lab, and actually we do take them to the media lab, and they record it in Audacity, which is an open source recording software, and they edit it because they've learned Audacity from me or from the previous computer teacher. And so they like do half of it, and then they pause, and then this is better, right? All you get is one shot. You record the voicemail, and that's it. And you don't have to. You can do it from any classroom. The kids just take their cell phones out and they make the call. So yeah, that's just one example. We have another thing that we do at Prospect Hill in the very end. Now my phone's on. Where we, at the very end of the year, we have this thing called enrichment term. For about 3 weeks, the kids are doing projects in these small groups, service projects. It's a service learning environment. And what I do is, or what I'm planning to do this year, we didn't do this last year, is to have a couple of something like a Google account for each group, right? And the kids can call and leave voicemails for each other, basically. Say, oh, hey, we just got back from Home Depot. We picked up this thing, and it was $7. Like, make sure you mark that treasure or something like that. Or if they want to do an interview, they can ask a question to another person. It's not the best recording quality in the world, but it's going to get the job done. All right, just a couple more things to discuss. So this picture, there's a movie. It's called. It's from Frontline. It's a documentary. It's called Digital Nation. Have you seen it? It's a good one. This I thought was spectacular. In Korea, it's the most wired country in the world for sure, or wirelessly wired. And this is hanging in the school, and it says something like, saying like basically being an internet troll is like a bad thing for society. Like posting negative things on forums is bad. And then there's another one that says like netiquette, as they call it, is like incredibly important or something. And the idea is if we're going to try and teach our kids how to use technology properly in the classroom, then we have to have that technology in the classroom. We can't just tell them no. You know, and we can try to teach them how to not press the button, right? Like, you know, we can't just make don't use your cell phone improperly. Okay, put it away. And that's like saying this to them. Here, don't press that big red button. And how many, I'm sure this has happened to at least, well, probably not you guys, but
No, it still comes up on Macs, which is funny. Sometimes.
That's the best. I love it. Because I thought the Macs were just so easy. Never mind. I don't want to go there. But you know, kids don't know that this is not real, right? We need to teach them that. And so just like we need to teach them that, you know, when they start getting text messages from American Idol, how to turn that off. Okay, so what are we talking about in the long term? This is just a quick slide about smartphones, and then we'll sort of wrap it up. You know, the original iPhone was $600. If you bought that, I feel bad for you, because 2 months later it was $400. It was $600, and now the iPhone 3GS, we've seen these commercials, is $50, right? And there are some Android phones that you can get for free with a contract. And so I imagine, and I think this is absolutely going to be the case, the pace at which cell phones have gotten into everybody's hands. Smartphones are next.
That's right.
Yeah, and there's no question about that. It might not be an iPhone, which is probably a good thing, but it will be a smartphone, right? Okay, and that only took 3 years, right? You think about it, how long it took from laptops to go from 3,000 or something to less than 500 in some cases now. That took a lot longer. This took 3 years, and yeah, there's a newer one, but this would do everything that we needed for education.
Oh, absolutely.
In
fact, it's better than the one I carry.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So the question then is, when this is in everyone's hands, are we going to actually ignore it? Are we going to Are we going to bring kids to the computer lab to do internet research when they have this in their pocket? Does that make sense anymore? And so the question is, now that everybody does have cell phones, how are we going to prepare teachers for that? Right? When every kid has a smartphone, which is really not that far away, how are we going to prepare kids for that now, or kids and teachers? I think that's key, actually, that smartphones are coming, and once they get even smarter, there's going to be no way to avoid using them in the classroom. There's actually a school in Fitchburg that a friend of mine worked at where they have a scrambler inside the school that makes it so there is no cell phone signal. That was astounding to me. I think that's absolutely wrong.
Well, think of the teachers, for example.
Yeah.
They can't use their cell phone.
Yeah, I use my cell phone throughout the school all day. Teachers are calling me, can you help me with the projector?
Sure. It's what we used to do with those big fat radios.
Yeah. I still have those too. Some schools. Okay, so last little bit. Okay, so you've heard all that. Maybe I've convinced you that they have some value in school, or even a lot of value in school, despite the fears. How do we proceed? So what is the right policy, right? I don't think, this is my view, that banning them all together, not letting them be used, having them be forced out of kids' hands and into their lockers or into their parents' cars before they get there, actually just encourages kids to secretly use them and cheat, use them for improperly sexting, cyberbullying, all that kind of stuff. And it also denies willing teachers who are up to date with this kind of stuff from using them if they want to, right? And this is the problem I'm running in now, actually, because this year at the school they instituted this policy, despite the success that I had with the previous year. And then the kids don't think that their cell phone can do anything, right? They think it's just for texting. If we don't teach them how to use it, then they think it's a bad thing, and all it can do is text, okay? On the other hand, if you don't have any rules, which is the case in some schools, right, or if there's no, at least maybe you have rules, but the teachers aren't doing anything about it, right, they aren't actually like implementing it, then the kids run rampant, which is not good either, right? And they've got it behind the textbook or under the desk, and they're getting distracted, and we're not teaching them the skills that they need for their brains to be developing properly. And they don't learn to use them professionally. They get texting, their teachers, and it's got I have to send emails to kids all the time now, and it's like sexychica22 at yahoo.com. And then the classes, if we don't have any rules for it and we're not enforcing them, there's buzzing, there's beeping, there's phones falling out and kids laughing. We don't want that either. And so I think the answer is a happy medium. This is the policy that I'd love to see happen in my school, that they're off. Okay, kids can have them, but they're off. No sounds, no nothing. And if there is a sound, it's mine. You can pick it up from the principal after school. And this is the most important part with pretty much any policy change in the school, is that the entire faculty has to buy into that. And they can't let anything slide. There has to be firm consequences for having your phone, otherwise the kids are just going to have it behind their back like this. Right? But what we do say is that in your classroom, you can do what you want with the cell phones. Please, in fact, do, and also encourage the teachers with opportunities and professional development to learn how to actually use it, use some of the tools that I just showed you a second ago. And then when they leave the classroom, again, those phones are absolutely powered off and put away. So that maybe they're usable, right? But then this is the last little bit. You can't just say, okay, great, teachers, you guys have cell phones in your class now. If you want them, rock and roll. See you later. That's not going to do anything. We have to show them how to do it. We have to have them see some of the tools that I just showed them, and not just see them, but also have somebody coach them through using them. And that's why I argue there's one of me for 50 teachers, a technology specialist. There should be 40. And so the way to do that, this is the way I try to do it, is to highlight the teachers that are using technology correctly, and to provide the training sessions, and to group teachers that are interested in using it so that they can learn from each other and actually develop this tool and use it. So I hope I did some of this, looked critically at the policies that we have, talked about the case that's sort of this abstinence education case where, like, if we just put the phones away, the kids won't learn anything and they'll use them improperly. And then also I hope I shared a couple of things that you might be interested in using in your classroom or your school, sharing with your teachers. And I'll close with this. I like Dewey. It's difficult to read. I don't know if some of you guys aren't educators, but or aren't like teachers as we're taught that. But Dewey said, if we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. And in this case, I think it actually even goes a step further. If we teach children as we taught yesterday, we're not just robbing our kids of tomorrow, we're actually making their tomorrow a worse place. If we're not teaching them to use the cell phones correctly, it's actually destroying literally their brains. So I think we need to take a more proactive stance. Just like everything else in the world, education stands in a really good place to solve this problem, this distraction problem. So we have to use it, we have to do it. Cool. Thanks. Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Did you say that your school has a new policy this year, which is
no cell phones? They can be off and away, but even the teachers aren't allowed to use them in the classroom. If the teacher wants to use them in the classroom, they have to give the kid a pass the day before, and the kid has to carry that pass around all day in case a teacher asks them for it. And it just turns off the idea altogether, right?
Do you find yourself issuing?
Oh, I don't. Incident reports for that or something?
No, giving students passes on a daily basis.
I only teach computer science now, so I'm always in the computer lab, and that makes this like less important. Right. But for other teachers, I think all the energy and excitement that I might have generated by giving a similar lecture to the faculty was sort of crushed right afterwards when they said, I understand why they did it. There were kids using cell phones in the hallway, and teachers didn't have the energy to stop them. But and it's much easier to just say no altogether than to say, like, take them out, turn them on, turn them off, put them away. But I think you have to convince your faculty of the value, and then you have to take a really strong stance and have everybody support it and get behind it, and then I think it can be done.
I was just checking whether the citizenship, how the faculty decide what is a good thing and a bad thing, and they can change that from day to day if they want. We have two items that would compare to yours, although we don't allow the students any. They have to put their cell phones in their blockers.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that change. But we have two things called electronic devices, which just means you've got an electronic device that you're not supposed to have.
Right.
and improper technology use.
Yeah.
I mean, any kind of technology that
Yeah.
you might use that you're not using it the right way.
Yeah, you're on Facebook or something like that.
Right, something like that.
Yeah, we have it similar. It's just called improper use of a personal electronic device, I think is the exact line item on that.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
What are your school's policies? Just quick survey. I don't know if you already did this.
I did in the beginning, actually.
Who allows cell phones?
I can go
in
back.
schools? Oh yeah, I'd love to see it. I missed that part.
For us, since we're a K-8 school, it's mostly just our middle schoolers, and the teachers collect them at the start of the day and give them at the end of the day.
I think it's different also once you get a little bit younger. I'm used to working with 7th through 12th graders. I'm sure that not every second grader has a cell phone, or I'm not sure, but I'm sure the percentage are low. Yeah.
Increasingly, because that's a way for the parents to keep track of kids and deal with emergencies
Yeah.
and that sort of thing.
We're starting to do the whole push for cell phones
Mhm.
the next year or so, but how do you deal with the equity issue?
Yeah.
Do you
So-
like school-owned cell phones? or-
No, so we have 3 kids out of 500
Yeah.
that don't have a cell phone. And so, in my view, if you're teaching that class, you just have to design an activity where the kid can share it with the kid next to them. So, like in one of those open discussions that we did in the beginning, you weren't here, the kid can borrow the kids next to his. Or in this kind of thing, then the kid uses the one next to him. So you have to design a lesson so that it's not absolutely necessary. And then in my classroom, I'd be happy to let my kid use, or a kid use my cell phone, or something like that. Or everything, of course, that you can do with texting, you can do with an email as well. So maybe the teacher's computer in the front can substitute for a second. And you don't want to highlight that kid, this idiot doesn't have a cell phone, which can be a little bit tricky. But it's literally almost everybody. It's 3 out of 500.
Yeah, no, that's our biggest thing, because we pushed this out, and teachers came back with counterpoints about it, and equity is huge. But
Yeah.
we have a small minority that would fall into that category.
Yeah.
But then if we wanted to track assessments,
Mm.
we wouldn't be able to do that if they shared a cell phone
Right.
or if they
Right.
use a common resource.
Yeah.
Like, well,
Yeah.
that's a whole quicker verse.
Everybody knows on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think it's the most powerful thing for this work if you're trying to track data. I think you can use it for that.
Yeah.
I think that's probably better in a situation where everybody has one, but it can still generate this kind of graph where I don't know who texted each of these, but where it can open up a really interesting discussion for your class and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to give you broad strokes, but for a fairly complex assessment,
Yeah.
at least as it stands now, it's a little more challenging to do that.
Yeah. It's actually quite distressing to me that the clickers are expensive as they are.
Well, you look at the hardware that's
It's
involved.
meaningless.
Yes.
It's
Right.
it's meaningless.
What they need is competition.
I mean, I think there is competition, but then there's that everything for schools is more expensive thing where they're just like, oh well, since teachers can't really negotiate for this single class set or whatever, that it doesn't get forced down.
Try supporting special needs kids. Have you ever seen the cost of technology
Yeah.
for special needs?
Yeah,
Well, it
It's-
becomes proprietary
It's
too.
absurd.
yeah,
So, I mean, the ability to export information out or use it with a system that's not, there's not some other relationship with it's locked inside that system, and you're sort of locked into it.
Mhm.
And you buy version 2, which
Right.
gives you that one extra feature.
right.
I worked, incidentally on this topic, I worked in a Boston public school, middle school. And halfway through the year, and it had a set policy, all Boston public schools, no cell phones out or on in school. I confiscated the first semester, 27. I'm pretty sure I pretty much didn't let anyone slide.
Yeah.
But might have been went to. But it was that has everything to do with the fact that every teacher has to have vigilant policy.
Yeah.
The students were using their cell phones as much in everyone else's class.
Right.
And so that's why it came into mind and thought they did it.
Right.
Good. Thanks, Mike. That was
No problem.
I missed some of it, but I'm sure that was as good as the parts that I saw.